Man, it has been a while. How long has it been since I talked about Galaxy? Yeah. Okay, so sorry for not covering Chapter 34 of Galaxias. Honestly, I had a lot going on during that time period when the chapter came out, and I didn't want to release it too late, and a whole bunch of personal stuff going on that made it really hard to cover that chapter at the time. But Chapter 35 came out, really good chapter, and I legitimately do not care about anything else going on right now because I need to talk about it. Obviously, I'll go over Chapter 34, because going into Chapter 35, the battle against Antares literally jumped up another level. Like, I will say this in later on in the chapter, but it really feels like we are unlocking a literal Bloodborne or Dark Souls boss fight with Antares as we go forward, and you will see, if you haven't seen the thumbnail, but when we get to that point in the chapter, you will see what I mean, because this series legitimately feels like it just keeps getting better and better, and I am so excited to talk about this series again, as I am really hyped for Galaxias every chance I get. But enough of me vaguely gushing over these chapters, how about we get into things? But before that, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel. It shows you want to see more. Also, volumes 1 and 2 of Galaxias are on sale, so go get them for yourself and recommend it to your friends. Boost the sales as much as you possibly can. Get more people into the series, because my god, does it really need the hype, because it genuinely can be one of the best things ever. I gotta make a video recommending this series now. Anyway, on to the chapter, and we'll start with Chapter 34, titled Schmitt vs. Kerner. As the chapter begins with some guys just talking to Yerkes, as Yerkes is telling them to go out and get some distance from the building to find the intruder, even saying that this intruder can change their appearance, and tells them all to go down and not to use their radios the enemy could be listening in. As we then get a quick shift, as this was actually Schmitt disguising himself as Yerkes the entire goddamn time, so that he can get all the just bystander guards out of the building and clear things up, as he just got his cleanup all set, done, and finished. Schmitt also says how lucky he was that all of the dragon counters that detect when dragonfolk are around burnt out earlier, as that would have been a real nuisance with all of those going off or trying to avoid the areas. But he then wobbles onto his knees and tries to catch himself against a wall, as even he's being affected by the sheer amount of, I guess, aura and energy that Antares has given off, as he gives another exposition dump just to continuously tell us how just amazing and powerful the Zodiacs are. He goes on to say that the Royal Zodiacs, when they engage in battle, the continuous release of their fighting energy known as Dragon Burn, so we actually get a actual name for what the energy dragonfolk use for their abilities when they fight, so Dragon Burn, we got that. They can cause physical irregularities. The shower of extraordinarily powerful energy destroys cells in the stomach and intestines and produces abnormalities in the central nervous system. So legitimately, the sheer energy that they give off affects everybody else around them that is weaker than them, like Hockey from One Piece, except this is more of a physical toll on the body that literally feels like it's burning them up on the inside. So the Royal Zodiac's just sheer raw power is just insane. And I love we get another image of Antares in detailed silhouette as a literal demon from hell. As Schmitt says, she only went to meet neraid a few seconds ago. This is way more power than one being should even have. Fully cementing Antares as probably being on the top of the totem pole in terms of the power of the Royal Zodiacs. And I am just absolutely floored by the fact that we're fighting someone this absolutely powerful so early on in the series. We're 35 chapters in. How in the hell are we supposed to beat Antares? We are still losing, even with a trick up our sleeves. That is just insanity. And we haven't even seen everything Antares can do yet. We don't even know what type of dragon she is. The Antares Glaze is generational. Genuinely the greatest ore farmer in modern day manga. I will hear none of it. Anyway, back to the chapter. Schmitt goes on to say that his technique is helping Neraid out right now, but even then he's going to have his hands full with just how ungodly powerful Antares is, and so he has to go and look for Geo right now. And so he goes through this hallway. As he thinks the stairs are just up ahead, he sees a thread, turns around, and sees someone held up by silk. Well, not someone, a suit and a helmet, as this was meant to surprise him and get him off guard, as Kerner lunges down from the ceiling to launch a kick at Schmitt, which he dodges. Schmitt tries to taunt her, saying that for a spider, that's a pretty fiery way of hunting their prey, but Kerner, with a just "I'm going to kill you" look, just says, "Why should I wait around for prey that knows I'm coming?" As Schmitt says, "I thought I'd be lucky enough to not face a Dragon Knight, but here you are." But Kerner ends up saying that the fact that you made it this far is my fault. Schmitt says that in this dragonfolk nation where individuals hold such extraordinary power, it becomes less necessary to have lots of soldiers. You could even say it's basically a policy for retainers of the royal zodiacs to be poorly defended. Now, he is genuinely trying to get under Kerner's skin at this point, and it shows as she is pissed right now, saying, "Is this really pity that you're showing towards us right now?" But all Schmitt says, "Oh yeah, no, this is a victory cry." Kerner launches her silk out onto the bridge, taking the railings and slamming them together to try and just sandwich Schmitt as he dodges and goes into the air. He goes on the ground, but he accidentally tugs on a silk string that she laid beforehand. As we see a pipe just planted off in the distance, like a literal bow and arrow, as tripping the silk launches the sharp-edged pipe towards Schmitt, as Kerner set this up in advance, knowing that he would probably trip something. She made this whole area into her personal web and hunting ground. Such really cool uses of the abilities of just using webs. That's incredible. But Schmitt is caught even more off guard, as when he takes a closer look at the threads created from her spider silk, something is oozing off it. As the threads cut through the bridge as he falls down, as he sees that it's some sort of caustic venom, as she does have powers beyond thread. Her threads have venom. She can secrete venom and seemingly lace it with her threads that can cut through and melt through steel. That is insane. As Kerner lunges forward to try and grab onto Schmitt as they're falling down into the ground. But Schmitt unleashes a smoke grenade as he manages to get away for a second as he flees further down, obscuring her vision. Schmitt gets to the ground and tries to take cover, saying that in a regular barrage of attacks that leverages the surroundings, this is clearly the Spider Dragon's specialty. Saying, "I'm using most of my power to keep neraid alive, so I can't even heal my own wounds. If I do anything rash, I'm done for," as we see that he has a cut on his arm. And I am so happy that there is drawbacks to Schmitt's powers, as right now, despite him using his illusions, he is still constantly using the prep work of those captured rats within the entire factory area to keep neraid alive so that he can keep regenerating every chance that he can. But his reprieve is short-lived as Kerner just slides down with her silk as she begins to say, "I see it seems you have no doubles or illusions," appearing right behind him. My god, does Awatetsuka know how to draw women at this point? I will simp over this woman as much as I humanly can. He knows what he's doing when he draws these characters in specific ways. My god. Simping over, Schmitt goes on to just talk with Kerner at this point, as he says, "You should keep your distance. I use my ability to hide bombs around here. One wrong move and you'll be blown to smithereens." But Kerner can see through the bluff, saying that she can detect the air's flow and fluctuations using the skin on the back of her neck. It can even sense the faint residue left when dragonfolk use their abilities. And down here, there's no response aside from you. So another aspect of her dragon abilities, which I do think this is something that spiders do actually have, which allows them to sense their surroundings. I think using the hair on their certain parts of their bodies, they can feel the airflow, I believe. So that's a really nice attention to detail for having a dragon spider power. Kerner then goes on to say how she despises people like Schmitt, people who perfectly at ease deceive and exploit others for their own efforts, doing whatever they wish without regard for rules. That arrogance that makes him view everyone and everything as material for their self-actualization makes her want to vomit. Schmitt has a smirk saying that, well, that's kind of harsh. Is your captain really any different? With Kerner saying, what an odd thing to say. Arrogance is something born of a disparity between those who are essentially equal. You wouldn't look at a tsunami or a tornado and say, how arrogant. I was drawn to the captain's power, as well as her confidence, elegance, and her kindness to her subordinates and civilians. Also her demonic face when she mercilessly slaughters her enemies. So this goes from literally her saying, hey, she is this strong. Do you really think you would say that, oh, you're being so arrogant to a tsunami, equating Antares to a natural disaster, as now she goes off and just lists a bunch of things that she loves about Antares. And this goes into like full-blown like Deku from MHA when he's just listing off information of different powers and people and their personality traits. She loves how she mercilessly slaughters her enemies with that demonic face of hers, saying her rear profile when she's reading, her nose when lit by a ray of light through a window, the gentle and surprising smile she gives when sharing her thoughts about a book. I love everything about her. The way her slightly sweaty skin glistens when she's finished working. Even her face as she sleeps is lovely. Once, when I caught a cold and was bedridden, she laid down and talked with me. I felt like I was in heaven. I'm still saving the apple she peeled for me back then. As she then looks at her hands and just gets pissed off as she realizes she's talking too much. Okay, first off, Kerner, I love you already. But also, how are you a bigger Antares simp than probably anyone else on this entire fan base at this point? Like, I legitimately, I found this hilarious. She's a bigger simp for Antares than probably any fan of this manga at this point. And I kind of love it. It's a nice little quirk. And it's honestly sweet and also overblown. As well as a bit creepy, which is a pretty decent combination at this point. But anyway, she gets serious again and launches more stuff from the sky that she had left prepared, as Schmitt has realized that she left bows up in the sky from earlier to kind of take him down from above. And we get a gloriously beautiful shot of Kerner looking down at Schmitt as she's preparing more of her onslaught, saying that she will not allow anyone to interfere with the captain, and this time she's going to end him. And that ends chapter 34 of Galaxias. Really awesome chapter. Glad we got more of the fight between Kerner and Schmitt, and this is definitely something that I very much appreciate. Schmidt's not a straight up fighter, and Kerner, while strong, is also not a straight up physical brawler. Using her abilities in a very smart and tactical way, using her powers and the environment around in order to get an advantage over her opponents and not let them get the upper hand on her. Unlike last time where she was careless, this time she was fully prepared and is not willing to make any mistakes at all. I love her style of fighting right now, and it perfectly fits what a character that uses this type of abilities would do and goes beyond what I would normally expect. I am so satisfied with this fight so far. I can't wait to see how Schmitt gets out of this one. But we're cutting away from this fight as we jump straight to chapter 35 of Galaxias. Also the first chapter in a while that has 20 pages, like 21, 22 pages in a while. So like this definitely got a lot of attention from Hatetsuka at this point. So let's jump right into chapter 35 of Galaxias, titled Climax. I want to make a joke with this title, but I'm afraid YouTube will demonetize me. But anyway, we start this chapter off with Gio. For the first time in a little bit, as she is waking up from being knocked unconscious by Yerkes earlier, wondering if someone's there. She looks over at Neraid, but he's talking to somebody else, holding up what looks like a pocket watch. This man in a hat looks over towards Gio, and we see his face as this shudders and shocks Gio awake once more, as we actually got our first real look at what I believe is Yuri Holst, her father. Now this is really damn cool. Now, obviously Yuri Holst and Neraid have a past that he doesn't remember, But this might show that before Geo was left on the island with the mayor who raised her as his own, she was with her father beforehand and probably had some memories left over. How old she was? Probably a toddler to not even remember that the mayor wasn't her birth father at all. So, like, this is a very big piece of information right here. So, really big face reveal. But anyway, the chapter begins, Geo wakes up, and we instantly cut back to Yerkes as he is pissed the hell off that all the subordinates are just out of the building right now, telling him that he told them to get out of the area to look for the intruder, as he instantly realized, you idiots, that was the intruder the entire time, get out of my way, I'm just gonna go after that brat at this point. As he's like, you know what, f*** it. If Geo's gonna be broken up by these guys, I'm just gonna kill her myself. Honestly, Yerkes has been looking for any excuse possible to kill Geo at this point. He is pissed off at her from the island and how humiliated he was by not just her, but neraid as well. So that grudge is pushing him to just get rid of and kill a kid at this point, which, Yerkes, you're detestable no matter what. I cannot wait to see her ass handed to you 5 ways from Sunday. But anyway, when Geo gets up, she gets this feeling that she recognizes that neraid is in the area and that he's making his way to her. But as she is in shock of everything that's going on, she looks down in despair, saying, my first thought was, I'm saved. What am I doing? As she thinks back to what happened with neraid previously, saying there's no way he could move with those wounds. What could Schmitt possibly have done for him? Neraid just shouldered another burden for me. As she thinks again, for me, remembering a moment from the previous fight, as we then begin to cut back to neraid. Now, I do like this cut in with Geo, because despite her wanting to escape to an extent, and while she is glad that neraid is alright and coming to get her, this is something that she has to think about. I've been a burden now. My first thought is I'm saved. Why is that my first thought? I like that we're getting this type of development from Geo so early on, because this has been a bit of a critique that people have for her character. Yeah, she's had this humanizing element and has the mind of an adventurer with some basis of knowledge. But once we got fighting into actual dragonfolk with Schmitt joining in, she didn't really have too much to offer outside of that humanizing element, and she's just been constantly saved by others. And now with this arc especially, in this moment, we are addressing these concerns as Geo herself is having these concerns as well. We don't know what's up with Geo. Is she going to stay more so just like someone that's going to be saved all the time and just give like general information, be the humanizing elements? Or is she going to be able to fend for herself in specific moments? And I feel like we're going to be leading up to something for Geo later on, because I do think she might have some latent powers that she hasn't awakened to yet, considering her father was also a dragonfolk, and we still don't know how dragonfolk are truly born, if they're just fully born with their powers initially upon conception, or if they gain these powers later on in life. Who knows? I still hold the theory that Geo might awaken powers. But anyway, after Geo is beginning to think over her place in the world with neraid and Schmitt in her adventure, we cut back to neraid as he's still fighting Antares, as he begins to punch, but she cuts off his arm. But neraid in the previous panel also lost another arm, but he then punches with his stub as 2 protruding pieces of his left arm's bones pierce through Antares' right arm. He dealt damage by using his own bones to pierce through her. That is hardcore and metal as hell. That is absolute insanity. But Antares not only pushes him away, but swings her sword to cut off the top of his head. As we see, the top half of the factory gets sliced as well, with Geo feeling the rumblings as she is right beneath them. Now, neraid regenerates thanks to Schmitt's abilities, as he tells Antares that she's wrecking the whole place. But Antares smiles, knowing that he's worried about what's going to happen to Geo, as neraid instantly realizes now she knows that neraid is being more cautious, as unlike Antares, he has no clear idea where Geo is at this point. So he can't just fight with haphazardly and cause collateral damage, because for all he know, he might kill her by accident. And Antares obviously wanting to do the whole thing by the book and get her publicly executed. If she dies from collateral damage, things still end up happening in her favor to an extent. So even with neraid fighting, Antares has all the cards in hand right now. So he's in the back foot at this point. But Antares ends up pointing this out, that this train of thought is very inconvenient. A desperate intuition will never betray you. What you just felt is your undeniable truth, as Neraid thinks back to when he told Geo to get out of there when he first fought Antares in the previous arc. As this ends up freezing Neraid for an instant, with Antares managing to grab a hold of Neraid's face and slam him on the ground. And as she looks down on him, holding him, she says, "There are plenty of ways that I can kill you without cutting off your head." As a piece of the area falls down, Geo is nearly crushed from debris. As she goes away, as the room falls apart around her, she tries to get her bearings, says at this rate she'll be crushed and that she needs to escape. She has to hide somewhere and wait for a chance to find Neraid. But she then thinks back to what Neraid said a while ago, saying, "You ain't changed a bit." As she stops for a second and realizes, will it always be this way, even after I get out? Will I spend my whole life being protected? And that is a nice train of thought for her to think about, because that also kind of mirrors her whole life on the island. Her adoptive father didn't want her to leave. He was protecting her because he knew that if people found out that she was Yuri Holt's daughter, she would be in constant danger and would be potentially caught for execution. And so, despite her not fully realizing it, but now in retrospect knowing it, she was being protected her whole life, and now in this situation, she's coming down to think, is my whole life just going to be me being protected no matter what? Am I just going to be this burden to other people? Again, I like that we're addressing this thing now, because unless we find something else that Geo can do to contribute, even if it's not combat-oriented, her being constantly saved is definitely a detriment to her character if nothing else helps elevate her. And I'm glad that she's having these thoughts because it's showing signs of real development. But Geo snaps herself out of this funk, saying that this is why we're different. He came here to save me, so right now what I gotta do is think about surviving. She then goes and looks over all the stuff that she has for her daily life, like her first aid kit, her lantern, and her cookbook. But she then finds a copy of the book Galaxias that she had on her, remembering back to chapter 1 when she gave Neraid the name Neraid based off of a character from her favorite book. But when she picks up the copy of Galaxias, she realizes and questions, why is there 2 copies of this book? But before she can try and piece things together, an explosion happens in the door behind her as Yerkes makes his appearance. As he is genuinely excited that she's still here, and now Geo has the fear of God in her once more, as she doesn't seemingly have anything to stave off an onslaught from the scaled dragon at this point. So unless something happens and she figures something out, she is absolutely screwed. But things get even more dire as we cut back to Neraid and Antares as she's wondering what's wrong. Did you stop resisting? As we see a whole giant puddle of blood and multiple limbs just constantly cut off, scattering the area. As Antares not only held Neraid down the whole time, but she kept cutting off his limbs every time they were regenerating. And now the regenerating seems to have stopped, or has at least slowed down, as a lot of the energy has been just, well, used up. And with the regeneration and loss of blood, she's holding his mouth down, as she realizes that at this point she might not be able to kill him unless she figures something out, but she can at least cut off his oxygen so he doesn't have enough energy to sustain life. Even with his high regeneration, his cells won't be able to perform their complex chemical reactions. So she's planning on suffocating him to death right now. Which honestly, if your opponent keeps regenerating, one way to win is to just have them start to bleed out more and also suffocate them so that their cells don't get the oxygen they need. So that is interesting. So Neraid is just panicking right now. He doesn't want to die, and there's got to be some way for him to get out of this. But then he thinks up a very hilariously stupid and disgusting plan. That's before Antares tries to do anything else. He starts licking her hand with a bunch of saliva, as she is just grossed out and horrified right now at what Neraid is doing. As we see his spit just start to leak out from his mouth from underneath her hand, as Antares tries to slam him down, but that one instance of just disgust gave Neraid the chance to slip away. And plus, his limbs grew back too again, so he managed to get out of that situation. So, yeah, and Antares is definitely still disgusted over what just happened, over this unconventional way of getting out of her grasp. As Neraid says, consider that payback for earlier, don't act like you know my feelings. And heck, he even managed to grab her sword as well. And her right arm seems to have been broken as well. Now, Neraid is celebrating a bit too early, saying that it looks like Antares can't fight anymore now that her sword isn't in her hands. Antares looks at her dominant hand, saying that she never meant to unleash her full might, and she can no longer grasp a sword. She looks over at Neraid, telling him to keep the sword. And in a double-page spread, Antares' sword stabs into Neraid's head, exploding it as the sword falls down. As Neraid's regeneration begins to start, Antares' sword begins to liquefy. And again, the paneling in this manga and the way things flow is fantastic. Because as her sword liquefies, it literally begins to transition into the next page and spirals around and goes into her broken arm. And once it does, it seemingly begins to brace her arm again. As she says, it is a crude brace, but this will let her use her power. As now, her sword is now physically a part of her body. And in the next page, we see Antares on top of a pillar as her dragon tail surrounds it, saying, "You caught me off guard once, but there's no reason to hold back now. See if you can separate my blades from my body again." As Antares now turned both of her arms into giant sickle blades, as she is now standing atop a tower, and she literally looks like something, a boss fight that you would see at a Bloodborne or Dark Souls, maybe even Elden Ring, as she enters a new form. This is badass as hell. I was not expecting Antares to do a full-on mode change at this point. And the fact that I forgot to mention this, she said that her sword is her will-given form, meaning that her sword is a part of her power. We don't have the full thing yet, but it seems like she can conjure and manipulate blades. I feel like next chapter we're going to be getting a confirmation of what her abilities actually are, but at this point I'm thinking Blade Dragon, Bone Dragon, or something like that. If she was able to manipulate the form of her sword and even use it to piece her arm back together and shift it through her body to turn her arms into sickle blades. Either way, again, how we end up getting out of the situation without dying is crazy, because it shows that we are not ready to beat Antares yet. So I genuinely want to see how we get out of this, because she's definitely top of the totem pole at this point, and now she's going all out. And here I had a problem before, so I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But we cut back to Kerner and Schmitt. As they're dodging around, Schmitt tries to tell Kerner to just let him go. If you're trying to kill me and take Neraid down with me, it's almost as if you think your captain can't handle him alone. But Kerner is locked in to take down Schmitt, saying, "Spare me your sophistry. I have no reason to let you run wild." As the two of them stare down at each other, Kerner looks down at him, saying, "Why don't you tell me the truth? If you tried, you should have been able to slip past the counters in here. To take the risk in confronting me, you must have had a different objective." And Schmitt sees no reason to hide anything, as he says, "Okay, fine, you're spot on. Then I'll just come right out and ask you. Tell me about the power sleeping within him, Neraid. What is it about the Wave Dragon?" As the chapter ends. So now we came back to Schmitt's curiosity about what Neraid is, the Wave Dragon, and his powers, because he genuinely has no idea what's up with Neraid at all or his abilities. But Antares, and definitely the other Royal Zodiac and some Dragonite members, might know what exactly is going on with him. And it is still crazy to think and consider what's going on with this. Because neraid is still a big mystery. We know he's friends with Yuri Host. We know he was basically a part of the royal guard close to the king, effectively. But we still know literally nothing about him or what his actual real abilities are. All we know is that he's just insanely strong and durable. And that's practically it. So, a part of helping neraid save Geo was also that he could find a way to confront Kerner or someone else in a high-ranking position potentially and learn about neraid, because despite him having more of a respect for Geo and neraid and his wishes, as he is definitely warming up to them, his own scientific curiosity is definitely more in his line sight and is more of his focus right now, because he wants to know what's going on with neraid, as that is definitely a big part of his own personal research and why he even joined them in the first place. So whenever next chapter comes out, that is definitely going to be where we're probably going to start off. And then we're going to probably focus on Geo for a bit. And then see whatever the hell is happening with the fight against Antares. Because again, I said this literally a minute ago. I don't see us winning unless we find a way to run away. Or some third party comes in to hold her off. Or get us out of there. Because legitimately, I do not understand how we're going to get out of this. Because I believe even the author in like a Twitter post or something said, I don't see us beating Antares at this point. So, legitimately, I need to see what happens, because while this series has been amazing lately, and look, these last 2 chapters have been great. This video is over 30 minutes long at this point, one of my longer chapter reviews, and I still have no idea where the story is going at this point. The mysteries are insane, the lore is great, and we're still learning more and more every single chapter of not just our characters, but everything else about the world in general, little by little. And I just cannot believe that this series isn't weekly or bi-weekly, and I really need the mangaka to get some really good assistance so we can get more consistency with this series, because it is really hard waiting over a month, nearly 2 months between chapters for a couple of pages. So, oh man, I'm happy that his health is better, but my god, is the weight killing me. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I will try and make content between chapters, because I do want to talk more Galaxias, because I feel really bad missing the last chapter and it being over 2 months since I talked about it last. But I'll see what happens, because this series is great and I do want to keep discussion going. But you guys let me know your thoughts, opinions, and theories in the comment section down below. And with all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day. Now, who do you think is going to win in a simp-off for Antares? Me or Kerner? Let me know. But spoilers, I simp for both.